Borknagar's new album came out, so we're going to talk about every single goddamn one of their albums.
One of the premier Norwegian black metal bands. What is your list? Leave it down below. Get ready for their first one.
Kicking it off with 1996's self-titled Borknagar, their first album. And you know what I really like about it, which is kind of fun? Solid dungeon synth and MIDI vibes, which I kind of liked about it. It's super cheesy, but I think it works. They're inching towards that progressive black metal sound with those rad chantings in the early days. Check out this. I'm not going to pronounce the song, so I'm going to butcher it. For me, the album is a bit long and kind of disjointed, but it is the debut, so you can't really fault them that much. The song Dowden is easily the best song on the record with that fast, like 3/4 vibe right in the intro. I give it a C. What do you think?
Yeah, I have it a little higher. I actually really like their really early stuff with their debut starting off. I thought the MIDI instrumental tracks are kind of like off-putting. It's a little weird. It's definitely
That's funny, I'm the opposite.
Yeah, it's definitely quirky for sure, but there are lots of instrumentals in this release. What I do like really is like the black metal stuff that they have going on. It kind of reminds me of like early Ulver. I have it a little higher. Let's go with like a C+. Yep.
Put it up at C+. I love this record. 1997's The Olden Domain. I actually remember picking this up. I was a young teenager and I just grabbed it on a whim when I was at Newbury Comics. I was instantly enthralled with this record, and to this day, it's easily one of my favorite black metal albums like ever. The intro to The Winter Way itself and the build up into this killer verse is so good. I love how forward the bass tone is on this record too. Like you can really hear like the picking and everything. It just sounds so good. And one thing that you'll notice in Borknagar's discography and even in this album is the instrumentals are really well thought out. On this particular record, that middle somber piano passage is such a fantastic bridge song. It adds that like introspective nature to the record, and I just love that. And of course, the killer final track, The Dawn of the End. Dude, iconic, clean vocals.
Yeah, dude, the clean vocals are really what the highlight for me is. For the band to come out this soon, a year after their original opening album, and to have such like a different kind of direction, but still remaining in that progressive black metal kind of direction is really cool. Some of the vocals can be a little bit campy and dramatic at times. It's a quirk, can get used to it after a while. I don't think the production might have aged well enough for some people, but for most of us who don't mind this kind of mid-90s kind of tonality, it's really not going to be much of a hurt to this album. I have it at a solid like B+.
Okay, well, let's meet in the middle and go A-. 1998's The Archaic Course. I could never really get into this album, but there are some cool moments. Overall, it just feels kind of jagged, and I miss the catchy Norwegian melodic vibes that were all over the Olden Domain. Here's Ocean's Rise. You'll see what I mean. I can easily get into those awesome blackened riffs that are all over this album, but the songs just kind of seem to randomly change course. And I will say, this is the time period of when bands were like trying to be complicated. My favorite song on the record, though, is the fast melodic black prog wild track Ad Noctem. You can hear the DNA of the band forming in this song. Overall, a bit too experimental for my taste. The record doesn't always land, but there are some great moments. I gave it a C-.
I definitely would put it in the C category. It really is a step back in production. There's some vocal performances that I just don't really care for. They're very ambitious with their prog, and it just doesn't work out, like you said. Hard C for me.
2000s with Quintessence, released on Century Media. You can tell we're in the 2000s with this album simply because of the production. This album is a really fun album, though. It's definitely a step up from the last one, and it's a more honed in version of the Archaic Course. The keyboards and the wild rhythms on The Presence is Ominous, in particular, going into those epic layered cleans with the black metal vocals, fucking rules. You get the reminder that this band is black metal when you jump into the ruins of Future with those killer blast beats and also those infectious melodic black metal tremolo picking. The best song on this album, though, by far, and easily one of their best songs, period, is Colossus. The bass and guitar intro build alone into that insanely catchy chorus gets stuck in my head for fucking days, dude. They're on the right track with this album. It's definitely a step up. Not one I revisit a ton, but there's some killer tracks. I put it at B-.
I do agree. It's definitely like half a step above the Archaic Course. Colossus stands out as its own song for sure. Definitely a good album to pull tracks from a playlist. Really about it, though, for me. So you want to meet above Archaic Course in the C tier?
Yeah, that sounds good. Empiricism in 2001. I can't put, this is such an unbelievable record. The production on this, I will say, did not age well, but the songwriting on this record is freaking pristine. I absolutely love this album for the songwriting itself. It starts off with that like blistering symphonic metal fury with like the toms and the piano, and it goes into the Genuine Pulse, which is, it sounds like this. Gods of My World 2 is just a phenomenal track. It shows Borknagar's ability to lean into more accessible and catchy songwriting, but loaded with fury and emotion. Inherit the Earth 2 is another very standout track for me. It shows that like killer progressive black metal influence that they've been clearly building throughout their discography. But this is where you can really hear the band getting its footing. This is easily an A- for me, dude. It's one of their best albums by far.
Yeah, if it wasn't for later in their discography, I would probably have this at a S tier for sure. 4-element synchronicity is just stupid. This is the Winterzorg era. I think Winterzorg really brings something really awesome into this lineup, both with his, guitar playing, his composition. The tone really hasn't aged super well, especially with that drum snare. It's very early 2000s. It's a little on the long side, but that's not really a big hit for this. I have it at like A+, basically.
Yeah, we'll just throw it in the middle of A, dude. It's such a good record.
Yeah.
Borknagar is going to try and be a little on the nose with this one because they know that they're an epic band with Epic in 2004.
High five.
It's a much more weighty and I'll say mid-focused record in the mixing department. Borknagar has this killer ability to just start their albums. You'll hear what I'm saying with this track. The way Origin comes in too, you just hear the band's savage side coming to the surface. I love how the vocals sound on this album too. They are relentlessly powerful and vicious. I just love that clear, crisp, throaty tone, especially on this song. The instrumental, and you'll notice a theme here, there's always some sort of instrumental, but The Weight of Wind is a really cool look into where the band is going with their cinematic vibes. These particular instrumental tracks are put in deliberately to break up that black metal fury, and it's done so well here. It's a better album than I remember, but definitely front-loaded, so I put it at B.
Yeah, I have it at B as well. I think it's a step down a little bit from Empiricism with as far as their like black metal stuff. This is their proggier, more power, melodic kind of driven era. And it works out really well.
Definitely in the B tier.
Noble morsel of grand eternity.
2 years later, we got Origin in 2006. This album feels like Borknagar's version of what Opeth did with Damnation, but a folk album. I appreciate it, but I almost never revisit this album. I will say though that Ocean's Rise is a pretty killer song. It nails that explosive emotion alongside those catchy vocals. Check this out, you'll see what I mean.
Make the fall of eternity explode.
The more progressive elements of the album are also really fun, with strings and off-kilter rhythms, like in the song White. It's a good album, but not really my thing. The vocals are kind of nasally against the warm tone of the acoustic guitars and strings. It doesn't really hit for me, but it is good. I put it at B-.
So I'm right there with you, maybe even a C+. I really don't revisit this album much at all. I love the comparison of Opeth Damnation. I have it to Alice in Chains' Jar of Flies, which is all acoustic and, you know, but obviously this is folkier, Norwegian. You got that European mood to it, but I have to be in the right mood to listen to it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I hear you.
Definitely bottom of the B tier.
2010, we've got Universal on indie recordings. Universal is their return to their metal sound. And while they don't push anything particularly new on this album, it's definitely really strong. Havoc is such a good track, dude, with those huge symphonic supporting sections. Just listen to that crazy bass tone too, keeping up with the intensity. Stir of Reasons is another great melodic, almost power ballad song with a fantastic vocal layering and keyboards. I love how that build-up happens with the woes in the background. Reason is also another just great straight up black metal track that showcases the fury of Borknagar with some serious oomph to it that breaks into those awesome progressive metal melodies on the keyboards. Great return, bit bloated at times. Put it at B.
Another strong release in this era. I definitely agree. It's a little bit bloated. I don't know what the history of this is, but it's like one of their only records not in the Century Media label. So it wasn't available on Spotify, so I had to find it elsewhere. A strong record. Nothing that I would say is super standout, but yeah, a strong B record for sure.
Yeah. We're starting to get into the golden era of the band, which I would consider starts in 2012 with Erd. This album is freaking killer, dude. And to be honest, I hate to say it, this is actually the first time I've spun this record. I missed this album somehow.
Shame. Shame.
The vocal performances on here are insanely tight, catchy, and super intense. Just check out this section of Apocalypse. One of Borknagar's slower and moody songs builds in such an unbelievably epic way with the Earthling too. That song in particular is a huge standout. I love Borknagar's, again, long instrumental sections on all of their records. They give you some perspective and moments of respite, like in the Plains of Memories. Erd is such a good album, dude. I'm going to be reaching for this one more often. I'm excited that I actually missed an album that is this good. So I have it at A.
This is great pacing. I love the way that it ebbs and flows. This is the true follow-up for me to Empiricism. Like, this is what Empiricism 2.0 sounds like in my mind. Love the production, love the vocal dynamics, just unbelievable stuff.
Put it at A. Went to Thrice in 2016. When this album came out, dude, I could not believe how unbelievably masterful this record was. The production itself is practically flawless. The performances on here are absolutely insane. Just listen to the rhymes of The Mountain, and it's just ridiculous, dude. Winter Thrice is easily one of the best songs, too, that they have ever written, period. Just look at the lineup of this band, too, at this era. There's a reason why they are absolutely destroying on this record. Just look at that freaking lineup and listen to Winter Thrice. The progressive elements come out strong, too, in moments on this album. This is where they're really firing on all prog cylinders, and it really works. Just an unbelievably masterful and brilliant metal album. I had so much fun revisiting it. It's been years since I've actually heard it. S tier.
This is their magnum opus. 100%. If you're going to listen to any of their albums, pick up this one to know kind of like what the peak of this band sounds like. The lineup is a flash in the pan for this band, which is funny because they have such like a revolving door of amazing musicians, but like the stars aligned for this.
I just
album.
literally got goosebumps thinking about it.
It's just so good, dude. When you hear Oystein Brunn, the headmaster of Borknagar, talk about working with these sorts of musicians, he is the type to try and push them to their limits, and you can hear it on this record.
Oh yeah. The whole package. It was lightning in a bottle, and they know it, and we know it too.
Yep.
We got True North in 2019. This is basically Winter Thrice Part 2, but with more prog sprinkled in.
I love sprinkles.
The band leaned into those prog influences pretty hard on this album, and it does work really well. Up North in particular is one of their best songs that they've ever written. That soaring chorus gets stuck in my head for days. The epic vocal layering too on this album is extremely impressive. You can tell that they've pushed it a little bit further beyond what they were doing in Winter Thrice, and that's where Borknagar shines in this particular time period of their discography. Listen to this section of The Fire That Burns.
Fire
One of the most simple songs that they've ever written is also one of their most popular, and it's just a dreamy and epic Norwegian metal track known as Voices.
In my head, there are voices.
Amazing vocal harmonies throughout, fantastic album. Not quite my S tier, but it belongs in A.
I love it as a, follow-up to Winter Thrice. It is definitely a strong album on its own, but still has that DNA from Winter Thrice.
The winter is cold to the dead, alone with you, I'll sleep with ease.
Some really nice folk elements on here that I enjoyed. I do think it's a little long. I think it might be a little tighter with maybe -2 songs. I have it at B+.
Let's go bottom of
Okay,
A.
so
I don't know if I would throw it with the other B albums.
No, I agree. I agree. Like I said, it stands on its own. So I think the bottom of A is a good compromise.
So we got to 2024's Fall. How does it stack up with all of their other albums? Well, it's insane, actually. This album is easily their best production to date. Amazingly clear and powerful mixing that lets all of those amazing layers shine through without sacrificing performances and the meatiness of the emotion throughout. Just listen to this absolutely killer section of Moon. Nordic Anthem is also a really cool track that adds some amazing vocal layering and catchy rhythms with those huge rhythmic guitars. Borknagar has really learned how to keep their progressive vibes in their newer songwriting techniques while nailing those things that get stuck in your head. Summits is the old school Borknagar return to form black metal fury that we're all familiar with and that they've mastered since the 90s. I love those syncopated cymbal hits that just keep the momentum of the guitar movements. The ending really brings it home too with those soaring clean vocals. Easily one of the best metal albums that they've ever written. I will be spinning this all year. It'll absolutely be making our album of the year list. This is A- A tier for me, easily.
Yeah, right on the spot for me too, man. With that ranking, it's A-, and I enjoyed it more upon like second, third listen. I think it's very front-loaded with those like epic anthems. The album kind of loses steam in the middle, but it's not like in a way that like I'm distracted by it or bored with it. I'm grabbed by their outro track. So it might be a couple of those tracks that they kind of wanted to give it some breathing room, and I'm still kind of connecting with them too. A-, one of their standout records from this era.
Throw it in the A tier. Did you enjoy this ranking? How would you rank Borknagar's records? Let us know down in the comments, and check out some of our other videos right here.
Go with the gods, Forgemates. The true north awaits.